What if one of the closest partnerships in the world, a partnership that powered North America for decades, suddenly started to crack under pressure? What happens when tariffs, fiery political rhetoric, and consumer backlash start breaking apart supply chains, stalling travel, and reshaping the way two neighbors see each other? Welcome back to the channel, where today we are diving deep into the Canada-U.S. trade feud that is shaking up everything from border tourism to billion-dollar exports. And trust me, what's unfolding is not just another trade spat, it's a fundamental shift that could redefine how the world looks at North America's economic future. Think about this: for decades, Canadians flocked to Florida beaches, packed Arizona golf resorts, and poured into Buffalo malls for weekend shopping sprees. At the same time, Americans happily collected those Canadian dollars, fueling tourism hubs across border states. But what if I told you that in 2025, that flow all but hit a wall? Statistics Canada reported a staggering 36.9% plunge in car trips heading south in July, and air travel. That nosedived almost 26% year over year. That's not just a dip. That's a collapse. And here's the twist: behind those numbers lies a powerful cocktail of frustration. Tariff stacking higher and higher, Trump repeatedly jabbing at Canada in public, and even floating the jaw-dropping idea that Canada could one day become America's 51st state. Canadians didn't just shrug it off. They responded with their wallets. They are boycotting US travel, spending their money closer to home, or heading overseas instead. And for the first time in memory, more Americans are driving north into Canada than Canadians are crossing southbound. Can you imagine that reversal? That's the kind of symbolic shift that shows just how deep these cracks are running. But while tourism is sputtering, trade itself is where the fire is truly burning. On August 1st, President Trump announced tariffs on Canadian imports would spike from 25% to 35%. The justification: national security under the IEPA. Ottawa called it nonsense, especially since Canada's role in US drug trafficking is basically negligible. And as if that wasn't enough, a new 40% penalty hit goods rerouted through third countries, slamming shut a loophole Canadian exporters had used to dodge earlier duties. Now, add this to the already brutal Section 232 tariffs: 50% on steel and aluminum, 25% on autos and parts. What you get is a situation where Canada's most critical industries are left completely exposed with no shield from USMCA exemptions. And here's the kicker: while these tariffs were designed to punish Canada, the boomerang effect is hammering Americans too. US manufacturers who rely on Canadian parts and metals are now dealing with inflated costs, which ripple down into more expensive cars, higher home prices, pricier appliances. Economists warn US households could pay an extra $2,400 a year because of this. Imagine paying that much more every year because of tariffs meant to hurt someone else. Does that sound like winning? And here's where things take an even bigger turn. Canada is no longer just playing defense. Ottawa is rewriting its entire trade playbook. For more than a century, Canada leaned south, sending nearly 80% of its exports straight to the United States. But 2025 has flipped that reality. Between May 2024 and May 2025, exports headed to the US fell from 78% to 68%, the lowest in decades outside pandemic years. Meanwhile, gold exports to the UK exploded by 473%. Energy shipments to Singapore surged. Aluminum sales to Italy soared. These aren't band-aids. These are brand new lifelines being forged. In just 1 month, Canada's merchandise trade deficit shrank from $7.6 billion to $5.9 billion, largely thanks to these alternative deals. Now, economists warn some of this may be short-term, with companies rushing shipments ahead of tariff deadlines, but the trend is unmistakable. Ottawa's message is clear: over-reliance on one customer, no matter how close, is dangerous. And diversifying abroad is less about abandoning the US, and more about building insurance in a world where trade itself is being weaponized. But diversification abroad is only half the battle. At home, a powerful Buy Canadian movement is gaining steam. And this isn't just slogans, it's everyday reality now. Polls show 67% of Canadians are actively avoiding US goods, even when it costs more. That's not passive protest. That's a consumer revolution. Domestic producers are seeing fresh momentum. Businesses are working harder to meet strict USMCA rules of origin to secure US access. Only half of Canadian exports met those complex rules before the dispute. By mid-2025, compliance had jumped to 2/3, and projections say it will hit 90% by year's end. Costly? Yes. But it's keeping the doors open. Meanwhile, policymakers are tackling something that's been talked about for decades: interprovincial trade barriers. Studies suggest tearing down those barriers could add $200 billion a year to GDP. Suddenly, tariffs from Washington are forcing Ottawa to fix long-standing issues at home. Imagine that, external pressure sparking internal reform. Energy, of course, is Canada's ace card. US demand remains massive, but Ottawa is redirecting oil and gas flows to Europe and Asia to reduce American leverage. And with consumers rallying at home, the big question becomes, can this Buy Canadian push really replace US products over the long haul? Or is this simply a temporary wave of patriotism? Now, politics is where this battle really heats up. Since the July 2025 deadline for a new US trade pact passed with no progress, Prime Minister Mark Carney has toughened his stance. His message: Canada will not trade sovereignty for tariff relief. Resilience and diversification are the new priorities. And the public is right behind him. A February poll showed a jaw-dropping 91% of Canadians support reducing reliance on the US. 2/3 now view America less favorably. 65% vow to avoid US travel. 67% say they are boycotting US goods. This is no longer a temporary protest. It's a deeper identity shift. Canada redefining itself away from automatic alignment with Washington. But don't think Washington isn't playing its own strategy. Analysts call it floating rationale, constantly shifting the justification for tariffs. One day it's fentanyl. The next it's dairy. The idea is to keep Canada permanently off balance, never knowing what's next. And the ultimate stress test. That comes in 2026 with the USMCA sunset review. Will the entire trade pact collapse? That cliffhanger is looming large. And yet, amid all this, something remarkable is happening. Canada is rallying. Export routes are diversifying. Retaliatory tariffs are in place. Domestic reforms are moving forward. Consumers are standing behind local businesses. The unquestioned partnership with America is ending. What's replacing it is a tougher, more calculated coexistence. So here's the bigger picture. Canada's journey through the turmoil of 2025 has been a rough ride. Tourism stalled. Exports rerouted. Costs climbed for households in both countries. But out of the grind comes resilience. Canadian firms are adapting faster than expected. Consumers are fueling the Buy Canadian movement with real action. Policymakers are dismantling barriers that have slowed growth for years. The US still looms large, and volatility south of the border remains a hazard, but Canada is no longer cruising in America's slipstream. It's steering its own course. And now it's over to you. Do you think the Buy Canadian movement can really replace US products over time? Will American consumers finally push back once higher prices hit home? And what will it take for Washington to realize these tariffs are actually backfiring? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe for more in-depth looks at global trade and politics, and share this video with someone who needs to understand what's happening right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.